The views and opinions expressed by this program's hosts, guests, listeners, and viewers are solely the views and opinions of the original source who expresses them. They do not necessarily represent the views and opinions of TV5 Network Incorporated, its subsidiaries and affiliates, and their respective stockholders, directors, officers, and employees.
Sounding off from Los Angeles, the undisputed king of podcasting, who's all about the good times, Mo Twister. Representing New York City, a social media monster and co-creator of the Not Bill Walton Twitter feed, Chris Savage. All the way from Sydney, Australia, a basketball media veteran and unapologetic cultural critic, Bradford Graham. Holding it down from Manila, a seasoned sportscaster with the studio skills to pay the bills, Jinno Rufino. This is Full Court Report.
Welcome to the Full Court Report. My name is Jinno Rufino, coming to you from Manila, Philippines. We are typically four guys from four different parts of the world, but right now it's a three-man weave between myself here in Manila. And we have, of course, Mo Twister, who is currently on location in the Bay Area, covering the Golden State Warriors and Oklahoma City Thunder Western Conference Finals series. And, of course, we have Brad down there in Sydney, Australia as well. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Three-man weave today, no Chris. And let's get started with quarter number one, where we're going to be talking about the Splash Brothers, among others. The Splash Brothers, Klay Thompson and Stephen Curry. Before the fourth quarter of game number 6, I thought to myself, the Warriors were in striking distance. This is the perfect stage for Stephen Curry to prove to everybody why he is a unanimous MVP, and he's going to cement himself with a legendary performance. Then what happens? Klay Thompson, who was on fire in the second half, got even hotter in the fourth quarter, and he finishes with 11 threes, a playoff record, 41 points in game number 6. And he kind of set the stage for Curry to close out that game in dramatic fashion as well. I mean, this was a fantastic performance by the Splash Brothers, especially Klay for me. But of course, Curry with those clutch baskets down the stretch. But thoughts on how these two have played this series so far, the Western Conference Finals?
Yeah, Gino, I've got a big comment for everyone. My big comment is no comment. I'm not saying a single word about this. Screw you, Warriors. No, I will say this. It was one of those sort of super fascinating games, and I guess, as everyone knows, we're now in the position where we never imagined where we would be. Game 7 coming up in Oakland. Ridiculous amount of sort of hype now circling this game. And of course, the Splash Brothers put them there. I mean, this doesn't happen. There isn't a Game 7 without that miraculous showing by Klay Thompson and Steph Curry. Now, the thing that was most interesting for me is more than half of the Warriors' shots in game number 6 were from three-point range. They shot 44, they attempted 44 threes. I mean, that is an insane amount of triples to throw up in any contest, let alone one with your backs against the wall. I mean, this is usually in playoff ball, it's usually slow down, half court, more meticulous, more post play. But this is where, again, we come back to this narrative about how they've disrupted the narrative of basketball. This is the best example we've ever seen. Not only did they hit 11 threes, one player hit 11 threes in a closeout game, unheard of, but they attempted 44 as a team. Now, there is just no way to defend against that. There just isn't. I don't care who you've got on the other end. As we saw, the Thunder couldn't defend him. Klay hot, yes, the Thunder made a number of sort of mistakes, mentally and physically, but you just cannot guard against a quick ball passing, dead-eye shooting team. And that's essentially why we're in a position we're in. Game 6, Warriors, champion fashion wins. Game 7 now in Oakland. Anything goes, do or die game, both teams, anything goes, and the Warriors better hope that they shoot this well, otherwise they're going home.
Well, to be home already.
Oh, wow, bold again. Look at you. It's been week after week, or episode after episode with you guys. Hey, listen,
they keep turning the tables. They keep turning. It's not my fault. They keep turning the tables.
I'll tell you this. I'm just gonna start singing the same song I've been singing, every episode here. While the 3-point shots are impressive, you know they're coming. You don't know 44 are coming, but you know they're coming. Clay shot 18 threes that game. He made 11. Of course, we all know about the record. Steph had a fantastic all-around game, 31, 10, and 9. I mean, that was awesome to see Steph perform the way he did, especially in the second half. Yeah, go.
Steph had a horrible first half and only validated himself in the second half. Don't bail Steph out here. Criticism.
No. I'm just saying he had a good.
Credit to
he had a good all-around game. Yeah, listen, they don't win without Steph as well as they don't win without Clay.
But the box score looks good at the end. But for 24 minutes, Steph was a no-show.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So, not as much of a no-show as KD, but a no-show nevertheless. Anyway, let's get to it here. Here's the thing. Yeah, we know the three-pointers are going to rain. We know those shots are going to go up. Even if they were down by 15 at the end, with 3 minutes left in the fourth, they're still going to be jacking it up. The reason why Golden State has won the past 2 games is something that I've been talking about: rebounding. When Draymond Green gets in double figures, they win the ball game. They need to be able to rebound the basketball. Now, they lost the rebounding total, but they didn't get killed as they were, in the other losses. So we saw Draymond, we saw Andy Bogut pull down a bunch of rebounds the game prior to the other night, and I think that is where Golden State was able to kind of keep with Oklahoma City and then close them out because of the elite shooting. Without the ability to rebound the basketball as they have, they lost. This is no way they're going to win.
The glass side of work, you got 70 freaking points out of your backcourt. Of course they were going to be able to steal this game because the Thunder's 2 stars weren't sort of firing on all cylinders. This is a case where the Warriors won 73 games on this philosophy. It's not like this is shocking to anyone. The shocking thing here is the context in which it happened, not the fact that it did happen. I mean, this has been their go-to all year. I mean, they've been an unstoppable shooting backcourt all season, and, for the 2 games prior to this, they weren't firing, they weren't hitting. Steph apparently was 70%, which we all know was crap. He just wasn't there psychologically. And now Clay steps up, carries this team, and again, has the advantage. I mean, he's bigger than everyone else and has a cleaner stroke. He's the 3-point shooting champion. And this was an example of a championship team relying on their strengths, going to what works, and knocking down the shots. They found net. It didn't matter what the rebound count was because there were no rebounds to get. Yeah. The Splash Brothers were hitting everything in the fourth quarter. There were no rebounds.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this to me, the second chance points that the Thunder were getting in the first 3 quarters were why they were ahead. And then all of a sudden in the fourth quarter, you couldn't do anything anymore because they were launching from God knows where, like how many feet behind the 3-point line.
And they made it 50%.
So there was there's nothing you could do. Here's where I disagree with you. They won game was it game 5 while struggling from 3-point line. Clay was 2 for 9. Steph was 3 for 8. The reason why he won that game, Andy Bogut dropped down 13 rebounds. Draymond Green back into double figures with 13 boards as well. Even if they're missing, they need to clean up. I know we're talking game 6, but I'm telling you, the way the Warriors can win is they have to get the rebounds. They cannot lose that part of the way that they've lost it dramatically in the other losses. They have to be able to rebound the ball. They have to have guys get into double digits. We saw Draymond Green, pulling down 5 boards, 3 boards. Andy Bogut's got 11 minutes. Guess what? In the last 2 games that they won, he was doing 29 minutes, 27 minutes. They started going, okay, here are the adjustments that need to be made. We need to have bigger bodies out there to go against the bigger lineup that OKC is throwing out. So instead of playing Bogut for 11 minutes, they went ahead and nearly tripled his minutes. They put him out there for 30 minutes, and even if they're struggling from 3-point line or not, they were still able to win both games. One when the Splash Brothers were on fire, and one when they struggled. So that's why they won those games.
Right, but they only forced Game 7. They only forced Game 7 because the 3 was dropping. That's the reason they're in this Game 7 in the first place. If those 3s aren't hitting, if the Warriors don't get red hot from outside at the end of this game, at the end of Game 6, there is no Game 7. I mean, the rebounds become irrelevant because the rebounds are an after-the-fact item.
But here's what I brought up in past episodes. The rebounds suck the soul out of your game, man. It is kind of like, again, this is my opinion. When you're not rebounding the ball, you just feel helpless. If you feel helpless, you don't have confidence in any other aspects of the basketball game. So when you're able to finally, secure that ball, have the ball in your hands, make sure that the offense can do something because they're actually getting the rebounds on the defensive end and getting you second chance shots, then the confidence that jumper kicks in, and then you're going to be able to reign the way the Splash Brothers do.
Right. Okay, so specifically, this is what I was talking about before when I said Steph Curry no-showed games 3 and 4. In Game 6, he pulls down 10 rebounds, made himself a real determining factor. So the fact that Steph Curry was an MVP, not because of the 31 points, not because of the second half shooting, but Steph Curry with the 9 assists, 10 boards is what I want to see. If you're the MVP, you should be going out there and affecting the game any way you can. And that's what we saw from Steph in the second half. He played a marvelous 24 minutes, and it was because he was all over the glass. It's because he realized he wasn't going to get his shot alone to make a difference. So he went out there and affected the ball game. This is what MVPs do. This is why Steph did all the things, and this is why he's being celebrated, and this is why they pulled out a Game 6 victory, and this is why their Game 7, you know, they're setting up what should be an epic matchup, and this is why they're in the prime position to go back to the finals, is because Steph figured out that shooting alone isn't going to get it done. So the criticisms that never came for Steph finally are there, and I think Steph realized, whether Kerr got in his ear, whether he just sort of realized it himself, it was a classic case of MVP stepped up. And he did so not by scoring, but by being everywhere his team needed him to be. Defensively, rebounding, everywhere.
Steph recognized that his shot wasn't falling in the beginning, and he was finding Clay, he was finding Barnes, he was finding other guys on the court. That led to 9 assists, plus the 2 crucial steals down the stretch as well. On who? Brad's Kevin Durant.
Right,
well,
okay, guys,
I wasn't pulling the strings, but hey, I get it.
Guys, in contrast for that last episode where I was absolutely almost, you know, I was hating on you guys because of all the Steph criticism you were giving, and I was defending. Now that you're praising him, I love it, love hearing it to my ears. But let me tell you this, I still disagree with your points, and this is why. It's not just Steph why this team won. It's not just Clay. We saw Draymond Green finally going back to what makes Draymond Green an all-star player. 12 points, 12 boards, 6 assists, 3 steals, 1 block. We saw Andre Iguodala back to his MVP finals form from last year. Lockdown defense on the star player. These are things we were not seeing in the other games of this series, and those are the games that Golden State was losing. We saw Andy Bogut again enforcing, willing, you know, blocking shots, getting rebounds. So finally, other pieces were contributing. Not just Steph stepping up, but Draymond getting back to the Draymond ways. Iguodala finally becoming a defensive force, and that's the only way you're going to beat an elite team. Is not by Steph being MVP, but by the Warriors playing team basketball on both sides of the floor. That's how they're going to get to the championship. I don't want to overcredit Steph Curry on this one. Yes, the line was great. I don't want to overcredit Clay. The 11 threes were fantastic. But come on, man. Everybody else stepped up.
Well, you're right. I mean, we're going to be discussing all those players that you mentioned, everybody else on those Warriors teams who helped them to get to this point with of course, Clay and Steph in the second quarter. We got a minute left here, and leading up to those guys that we're going to be talking about in the second quarter, somebody you didn't mention, Mo, and I want to ask you about him because I know you've been following this team really closely. Harrison Barnes, he's in the final year of his contract with the Warriors. And what's your expectations from him? I mean, he's kind of had a Harrison Barnes type Western Conference Finals in the sense that he's just been hovering around and he's been doing maybe close to double-digit points every single game, but he's been pretty okay. But do you like what you're seeing from Harrison Barnes?
No, I'm not, and I understand why Kerr benched him to start the second half. It's just because he's not playing the way he's supposed to be playing. I mean, he'll camp out for a corner 3 every now and then, but look at the line from last game. It was atrocious. You can't give a guy like that 30-plus minutes. You can't give that guy a max contract either. I mean, I know Harrison Barnes kind of screwed it up. He was like, okay, I'm going to do, I think what Jimmy Butler did, which is I'm going to play one season. Somebody else did it. I slip in the tongue right now, but someone else. I'm going to play for 1 year, and then I'm going to kind of boost my value up and go sign a big deal. But Harrison Barnes has struggled and has flopped. I think that idea, that plan he had, has really backfired when Golden State was dangling a fat contract to him a few seasons ago. So I think he has really hurt his stock. If we're talking about free agent year, you said, and I think right now more than ever the spotlight is on him to do something. He's got minutes, he's got a starting spot, and then man, he got pulled for the second half. Like that, it's the bottom of the barrel right now for Harrison Barnes.
So will Iguodala start game number 7?
I mean, he should. You got to kind of have to go with your biggest guns here. Andre Iguodala played 38 minutes last game, as he should. Yep. And with the defense that he showed on Kevin Durant, and I don't know if it's the defense or the struggles of KD, whichever it may be, something worked, and you have to go with that in an elimination game because Game 7 is still an elimination game for Golden State, even though the tides have turned and momentum is on their side.
All right. Thank you very much. Time's up. And second quarter, when we return, this is the Full Court Report.
Welcome to the initial episode of No Holds Barred with the Dean, Chinito Henson. We ask the questions, you get the answers.
Did you feel rough that you didn't get the Best Import award?
Our best import.
If you were the commissioner of the PBA for a day, what would be the first thing you do?
I'm not telling you nothing.
Tell us, Leland, last November, when Samboy, your husband, suffered cardiac arrest, what was your feeling? How were you able to cope? And what kind of magnitude of expenses are you facing?
It's not good.
Welcome back to the Full Court Report. For quarter number 2, we're going to be going over to the Bay Area, where Mo Twister is on location. He's going to be talking about, who else? The Golden State Warriors. Mo?
I love how you say on location as if like I'm here kind of with the team. In fact, I'm just trying to scalp tickets myself to get to this thing.
Mo, it sounds like you're standing outside Oracle Arena right now, living in some sort of tent city, and you're busking, you're doing something for tickets. Look, I don't even know. You might have a sign around you that says "We'll blow you for tickets." I mean, I don't know.
No, I know. That's exactly. I had my kids write it out earlier today. I'm going to be sitting outside with that same sign. But yeah, no, I mean, I am here. The vibe is great. I got to tell you, everywhere you go, as expected, Steph Curry jersey, Clay jersey, Draymond jersey, every hat is a Golden State Warriors hat. It's actually kind of cool, you know, to be here this time of the week. Tomorrow's going to be freaking nuts, and yeah, I'm excited to see how that turns out.
Really
but let's talk about...
I feel really bad for all those guys in Oracle who are going to have to go home disappointed because the Thunder are going to advance.
The more they lose.
I'm going to let you guys take over here and just hide away between the two. All right. But
I mean, clearly, listen, I mean, it really looked like the Thunder were going to advance the last night. They had it all working in the first 3 quarters until what happened. But again, I want to put some focus, as I ended the last quarter with, on some of these other guys outside of the Splash Brothers. Brad, I want to kind of throw it to you first. Andy Bogut has been playing some what we would like to consider heavy minutes, considering how kind of he was in the first few games of this series. 29 minutes in Game 5, fat line, 15 points, 14 boards, 2 blocks. I mean, it was beautiful to see him back out there. I mean, I know he's really great at dishing the ball. He only had 2 assists, but to grab those rebounds, to block some shots, to really just log in heavy minutes and do what he does, I think that was key for them to win in Game 5. Again, I brought him up. Draymond Green pulled down 13 boards. He had 4 block shots. This is why he was a runner-up to the Defensive Player of the Year. I like seeing these other guys finally clicking, and I think Andy Bogut is a little underrated. How much he's contributed to these past 2 wins.
Well, I mean, you saw this with the Thunder taking that 3-1 lead. They did it because of their glass work. They did it because of the speed and size that they have and length on the court. And again, Bogut looked a little dejected in those sort of 2 losses in games sort of 3 and 4. Wasn't used much, and clearly the Warriors had just been outsized, outmatched, outmuscled. And then Bogut comes in, engaged, focused, realized he had to neutralize, Steven Adams, did so. Really impressive Game 5. Backed it up again with a stellar Game 6. And he's helped put them in the driver's seat in this series now, and he's not going to get much of the love, but they don't win those games without at least his influence and impact, at the defensive end. And again, they won 73 games because Bogut was a top-of-the-elbow playmaker. I mean, he's an incredibly gifted passer. We know he can block shots and rebounds, but for whatever reason, in those first couple of games of the series, not only did the Warriors not use him like they did in last year's finals, but they've never needed to because they haven't faced a team with such size before. But the fact that he saw what the opportunity was, he saw the challenges ahead of him in Adams, a guy who wasn't going to back down, a guy who was going to get, in Draymond's head and try to muscle everybody. He knew that he had to step up, and he did just that. And, we've seen him, limited minutes, sure. Like, he hasn't played more than 30 minutes yet, and he probably doesn't need to. But he's definitely helped swing this series. And I think, Kerr, more than anyone else, is going to give him a chance to perform again in Game 7. And then you might find he's actually going to be a bigger impact in this year's finals, should they advance, than he was last year. So, the Warriors themselves know how much value he gives them and how much more they can sort of do with him out there on the floor, because he's definitely a better passer than, whatever they have in terms of Verjao or Spates or, Ezeli or whoever it is that they're going to bring off the bench if they need another body. He's definitely the most talented big man they have. But again, he doesn't score, he doesn't shoot, but he's also really effective rolling to the hoop. He threw down a couple of alley-oops. He can definitely hit the jump hook when he needs to. And again, he's a seasoned vet. I mean, he's been in this league 10 years. He knows what it takes to get it done. And he's definitely a big kid, so he doesn't get pushed around easily, can take a charge. And again, he's also been one of these X factors that's helped swing it back in Golden State's favor. So, along with Iguodala, I think Bogut and Iguodala have kind of been the two guys that kind of deserve more credit than they're getting. But that's also why this Warriors team is so successful. They really do go 7 or 8 deep, unlike most teams.
Yeah, but when the Warriors played a small ball, that lineup of death that they have, and the Thunder kind of neutralized that. They needed Bogut to step up in game number 5.
Right.
And that's exactly what he did. The $11-12 million that he's earning this year, totally worth it in that game alone, if you ask me. Because without him, they would have been this series would have been over. And I think that they're gonna need to find a way to not just play that small ball, but they need to utilize Bogut a little bit more if they want to be more effective, especially with game number 7 tomorrow, because that small ball lineup could be a disastrous one against the Thunder, even in game number 7, even with momentum on the Golden State side.
Yeah, no, I think the small ball lineup should not be employed as much as it has been in the past, even though it has been very successful. I mean, again, rebounding. Look what OKC did on the glass last game in Game 6. KD had 7, Ibaka had 9, Adams had 9, Westbrook had 9, Roberson had 8. I mean, everybody on that team is rebounding. You're going to need guys who are going to crash the glass, like Iguodala, who had 7 boards. Steph Curry chipped in, of course, with 10 himself. Draymond had 12. So, the only way I see it is you got to play Bogut some heavy minutes. 29 is perfect. 28, that range is ideal. And then Iguodala's got to play a ton of minutes here in Game 7. I want to ask you, Brad, again, did KD struggle because he struggled, or did Andre Iguodala finally kind of show up and put that lockdown D that we know he could do?
This is a case of, I think it's the combination. I think Durant, and I don't know how you guys saw it, and I'll get to this in the third quarter, but he looked gassed. I mean, the fatigue, I think, was showing mentally and physically for him. But that doesn't mean that we should take away how incredible Andre Iguodala's defensive performance was. I mean, it was a masterclass in how to sort of shut down an elite scorer. We've seen him do it before. We're going to see him do it again. There's a reason why he's an Olympic-level NBA player. And again, he's been around the league long enough. He knows, he studies. I mean, Iguodala's a super smart guy. He knows all the plays. He knows where guys like to go. He knows the spots they like to do. He knows what the guys' faults are. And he plays the numbers and the advantages. And he's got super quick hands, the long reach. He's stronger than we give him credit. And he's really athletic. I mean, I think sometimes it's just the case of Iguodala is a supreme athlete, and sometimes that's all you really need. Yep. You need the physical capacity to do it, and then you need the sort of mental capacity to sort of enforce it and enact. And what we saw from Iguodala was exactly why he's employed by this team. He's there to make a difference, and he did so. And look, you know what? They should give him a big fat bonus if they advance, because what we've seen him do over sort of games 5 and 6, I think he deserves a lot of credit. And the 38 minutes, I guess, suggest how important he is to this Golden State defense.
Yeah, again, the 38 minutes, the current decision to put Iguodala in the first unit when they started the second half, I think was just as important as Clay coming out there on fire, hitting those bombs. Again, that's why I have to give credit in this victory to a team effort on both ends. As sexy as Clay was with the 11 threes, man, it's nothing without Andre Iguodala. And I think you said it earlier. These are guys that are not getting enough credit. He was just as important, if not more important, than Clay's little shooting spree and Stephen Curry's great, second half heroics here.
Well, right, and your point being that last 5 minutes, specifically that last 5 minutes of Game 6, the very reason we even have a Game 7 is because the Thunder turned it over 6 times. Steph and Iguodala both got key steals. Now, when Durant's driving to the hoop, Iguodala swipes the ball away. That should have been either a short 2 or at least an easy bucket from, or at least an easy attempt from Durant. Instead, turnover. Same thing with Russ. And Draymond poked away 2, dribbles by Russ late in the game too. And again, it's the fact that the Warriors were so active and their small ball team sort of so mobile, and Iguodala and Green sort of so disruptive, whether it was strips, whether it was just swipes, steals, whatever the case was. I mean, essentially, they beat the Thunder at the game that Thunder had mastered in the 2 previous contests, which was getting in the passing lanes and really sort of being an irritant on whatever the team was comfortable doing. So when it came down to hero ball, Iguodala put the clamps on. and basically got to the spots, beat the Thunder to where they wanted to be. And again, like, there's a reason not only that Kerr has him on the roster, but he sort of gave us that masterful sixth man, Manu Ginobili performance. We all know he should be starting, and on 29 other teams he would start, but he's done this before and he's going to do it again. He pretends like he's the sixth man and he doesn't deserve to start, but we all know he's one of the 4 best players on the team.
Sure. No, I agree. And, if there's a person that I was going to blame if they were, in fact, dispatched by OKC, it isn't Steph Curry, who's taken a lot of heat in this series. It really is Draymond Green.
It should have been Steph Curry.
Yeah, no, it's Draymond, man. Draymond's been awful, and finally, we've seen Draymond in these past 2 games. The same Draymond that has helped this team go to 73 wins. But go.
I'm sorry. If they get knocked out in 6 or if they get knocked out in 7, either way, this falls on Steph, man. It's got nothing to do with Draymond's no-show. It's all on Steph. Steph's the MVP. Draymond's not the MVP. Don't give Steph a free pass. Yes, Draymond stepped up and it helped, but if they get knocked out, it's on Steph. Who else is it on? It's not on Draymond. He's not the MVP.
And just like if the Thunder get knocked out, it's going to be on their two-headed dragon. But if the Cavs get thrown, if the Cavs lose, it's on LeBron. It has to go on the best player. It has to go to the best player.
LeBron last season.
It has to go to the best player.
When they lost in the finals, it was, LeBron should be the MVP of the finals.
No.
They lost.
You still heard people say, LeBron looked gassed in game number 6.
Hating on Steph.
I will never hate on Steph Curry, but if you're the unanimous MVP and the best player on your team, you need to. You're accountable. It just comes down to that.
Thank you, Jinno. Common sense kicks in. Mo, just accept that all the pressure is on Steph. What you get out of Draymond Green is actually gravy. You shouldn't rely on Draymond Green for wins. If Draymond Green is the reason you win or lose, Draymond Green is not almost... Look, he's very effective, and we saw what a difference he can make. But he's not the reason they win this game. It's because Clay and Steph got hot. It's got nothing to do with Draymond Green.
No. I mean, man, again, we are so fundamentally off on our opinions about this. Right, and guess what? This is an offensive and defensive ball game.
It is.
Without Draymond Green performing, there's no way they can win that game. So there has to be fingers have to be pointed on the lack of defense as there is on the lack of offense on Steph's part.
No, I'm sorry. When you're the MVP, the blame and the accountability, as Jinno mentioned, has to fall onto him.
It is a freaking award.
But it symbolizes something that he's the best player in the league.
Symbolize my nutsack. Who cares about symbolism? It's what's going on the court. You guys are so in love with this trophy. That's just because Brad probably, did it with some girl who was holding the trophy in the room. You guys are so infatuated with a trophy that you forget that this is a team game. And without the other players doing what they're supposed to do, you're not going to beat the OKC. You're not going to do it.
No, I'm not saying that it isn't a team game and that it isn't it's the case where the team doesn't help carry them to victory and everyone plays their part. The point here is that to say Draymond Green is the reason they win this series or the reason they win that game 6, I think is ridiculous. I just don't think that is actually the way this team is not only structured, but I don't think that's the way the sport of basketball is even played. If Draymond Green is that marvelous, he'd be carrying his own team. I'm sorry, but he can't.
It's not marvelous. Again, it's not marvelous. It's getting the contribution that you're supposed to be getting from certain guys in their roles. Listen, Steph struggled in Game 5. They still won because Draymond finally played Draymond-like. Steph struggled in Game 6, as you said, in the first half, but they were still able to pull out a win because other players were doing what they were supposed to do. Clay was shooting the way he was supposed to do. Draymond was dishing, rebounding, and defending the way he was supposed to do, as was Andy Bogut, as was Andre Iguodala. Right. Again, that's why you and I are so different in all of this.
First of all, Jinno, before we get out of here, I've got to just basically like this. Mo, there is a very distinct pecking order, and the responsibility falls according to that pecking order. Win or lose, it goes to Steph first.
This is not the military.
That's what's been established. I don't care. You don't get a choice in this. This is the narrative of basketball. This is how the NBA functions.
I completely disagree. Man, in that case, then never give anybody an award I like again because I don't want to hear this nonsense.
Okay,
let's go to halftime.
Time's up here in the second quarter. It's halftime when we return here. This is the Full Court Report.
a Sports5.ph original web show.
My name is Dominic Uy, and this is my buddy Kevin Limhoco.
We are going to be testing products to their nth degree, to their limits.
Cars.
How many car makers are not equipped with power steering?
Gadgets.
You feel the value of that watch.
And everything in between.
I don't like to pamper myself except in a restaurant.
This is the web show for the modern man.
Oh, let's go!
Nth degree. Catch it exclusively on sports5.ph.
It's halftime here at the Full Court Report, and we needed to separate these two guys, even though they're in different continents. We needed a timeout. We needed a timeout because there was.
No, man, I gotta tell you, I enjoyed the disagreement here, but you gotta understand my love for Brad is immense. In fact, my son, who's 6 years old, I was walking around the city today. I got an email from Brad regarding the show, and I was like, oh, it's Brad. And my son lights up, and he goes, Brad? And then he goes, you know what? You gotta tell Brad we're gonna be best buds for life. He said that to and I was like, oh, I gotta tell that to Brad. Yeah, he's like, oh, best buds for life. And to me, I even got the chills. I was like, yeah, because man, I love Brad immensely. My family does. My son thinks he's the greatest human being in the world. So we can disagree about freaking MVP awards and stuff, and think nothing would take away my fondness for Mr. Graham, man.
All right.
And neither of my son. My son likes Brad more than he likes me. But anyway, all right.
But yeah, we're gonna be talking about how social media kind of ruined certain things for us in different ways. Brad, I'm going to go to you first in Sydney, Australia, to give us an example of how social media, be it Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, kind of affected you in a negative way.
Right, I'm going to preface this by saying I am, as everyone would know from following my account or even just interacting with me, I guess I'm able to sort of turn off my social media. And a lot of times when I'm doing any sort of design work, I don't have the internet on. I turn the Wi-Fi off because I don't like to be interrupted. Or again, if I'm looking forward to watching TVs, movies, or whatever that haven't been released yet, I hate having someone spoil things for me. Screw you. They put twists in the movies and TV shows for a reason. I'm sorry. If you can't help yourself, get off social media. But rant aside, one thing, Jinno, when you're going to really sort of, I guess, understand this is when episode 7 of Star Wars came out, I happened to jump on social media. I hadn't seen the film yet. My little, 7-year-old nephew said it was a masterpiece. I had to go see it. And then, of course, I read online, someone said something about, Han Solo, ... And my first thought was, thanks. Thanks for ruining the movie for me. And although they thought they were being subtle, by saying Han Solo, ... I thought, what the hell is wrong with you? Don't say anything at all. Don't put a Han Solo ...
Right.
Say nothing. Just say nothing. Refrain for once in your life. So unfortunately, social media ruined Star Wars Episode 7 for me. But my grief with that movie has nothing to do with the twist at the end or the reveal at the end. But yeah, thanks social media. You ruined Episode 7 for me. And I'm going to carry that to the grave. So Twitter has got its advantages, but it also has its disadvantages.
Yeah, but I guess the part of the disadvantage, Brad, for especially for you and I, living in this part of the world, a lot of the games, let's say the sporting events, happen in the morning while we're still asleep. And
dude,
what is this hypocrisy? What is this hypocrisy?
When do we
Jinno
wake up?
Rufino is the #1 tweeter about scores in real time than anyone else in the Philippines. And you know what I do? I'm on Twitter and I'm like, Gino's live tweeting the scores of a game that everybody's watching anyway.
No.
Wait a minute. Like, what? You don't have a television?
No,
This is Jinno. Oh, Warriors 118, Thunder 111 with 6 seconds left to go in the fourth. It's like a constant updating of scores.
You know why?
Jinno Rufino, your public enemy
Mo,
number one.
Mo.
Let me make it worse.
The reason why I do that though is because people ask me to, and because people are at work or are in school or. That's the reason why I do it.
You cannot complain about this topic when you're the #1 guy who does it.
Here's what's worse. So Gino's updates, right? Say it's one of the sports scores. Now, say it's an NBA game. I know we usually don't talk NBA during halftime, but in this instance, I think I have to. Because our local ESPN feed is actually on a 2 or 3 minute delay for whatever reason, the scores come up on Twitter before they show up in the game. So Mo says, great 3 by Steph. I'm like, what the hell is he talking about? 30 seconds later, Steph hits a 3. I'm like, So not only is my Twitter ruining my life, but the broadcast is delayed, and therefore Twitter's doubling down on how much it's bothering my. So I have to turn it off sometimes and not pay attention, close the laptop, whatever. But I don't know, Mo, you're a big Game of Thrones fan, and you like other pop culture.
Yeah.
Does Twitter or social media ruin things for you? Has there ever been a case where you've had something spoiled?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think Game of Thrones is probably the best answer to give. I mean, it's every week. Like, Game of Thrones is usually on when we're doing this show, right? So sometimes I'm trying to go through basketball information on Twitter, and all of a sudden I see Dire Wolves Lives Matter. So I know a Dire Wolf freaking died last night, in the episode tonight. Or I saw a bunch of hashtag hold the door, for example, for last week's episode, and you knew if you just kind of have a feeling, oh, that means Hodor probably ate shit. So you're like, oh man, you sit there and you're killing yourself because social media ruins Game of Thrones all the time. We all know that there's a 24-hour kind of like grace period, right? I think that's what it should be. I know a lot of people say no, it should be 2 days, should be 3 days. Right.
Give people a chance.
Should be 2 days, 3 days a week. No. 24 hours for Game of Thrones. It's 24 hours. For movies, all that, different story, maybe 1 week. But for Thrones, 24 hours. I can't get 5 minutes after the episode. I see a photo of Jon Snow with 35 stab wounds, and I'm like, oh, great.
But there's nothing we can do about that, right? We just have to stay away from social media.
Well, Jinno, here's what I will say. The funny thing about social media is while you're on it, it's the greatest thing ever. The second you log off and the second something else is on there and you're not in tune with it, it's the worst thing on earth. So it's you're either with it or you're against it. And when you're on it, it's a godsend. And when you're not, I hate it to death. So anyway, that's my 2 cents on that.
It's a love-hate relationship.
Let's get back to basketball talk.
All right. That's it for our halftime show. The third quarter of the Full Court Report when we return.
Rio 2016, August 5 to 21. Exclusive on TV5, your Philippine Olympic Network.
Welcome back to the Full Court Report. This is the third quarter, and for the second half, we're going to be heading over to Sydney, Australia, where I seriously, after Game 6, the first person I wanted to call and console, I wanted to be like, Brad, I hope you're okay, and I hope everything's fine. Yeah, Brad, what do you got? Because after that Game 6, I know you want to talk about the Thunder and the guys over there.
Man.
Go ahead, man.
Like it was one of those really sort of deflating experiences. I mean, I try to be impartial, but in this instance, I have sort of a lot riding on one team. And, you got to play the biases. Obviously, it's no secret that I'm a Kevin Durant fan, and I do want to see this Thunder succeed. So to see them lose the way that they did, especially at home in a closeout game, to see the shooting performance that we saw from Durant, 10 from 31, 1 from 8 from deep, that's the most troubling stat line here. He's been shooting horribly from long distance all series. Early on, he forced the issue in Game 6 when, he clearly wanted to come out and stamp his authority on the game. And then, of course, just by the end of it, was so gassed, so fatigued. I think you could just see the series wearing on him. I'm not going to say Iguodala got in his head, but he definitely sort of was bothering him. He wasn't able to get to the hoop. And I still can't understand, and you guys can sort of chip in here and offer your opinion and take on this, but why a guy at that size with that length wasn't getting more to the hoop, especially against the small ball lineup. I don't understand why he was sort of not so much settling for the long range two, because he can knock them down and no one can block that shot, but why he wasn't just sort of putting that extra dribble, that extra push, and trying to finish at the hoop. No one can stop his shot. No one can get it within reach of him, and yet he was settling for the long shot, trying to sort of throw the haymaker and hit that and land that knockout punch. I thought they could have won this game. They really were putting themselves in a position to take care of business. And again, another fourth quarter sort of, surrender by the Thunder. Disheartening to see, but it's not over yet. So let's reflect on Game 6 and then let's get to the business at hand for Game 7.
I was really surprised because I thought after that Spurs series, I thought they figured out how not to collapse in the fourth period anymore. And all of a sudden, because we saw it all throughout the regular season. And then all of a sudden here,
14 different times it happened where they, gave up leads, going into the fourth. And in this case, they were up by a few points with 5 minutes to go. I think they were up 7. And then to lose the way they did in such sort of, dramatic fashion, Clay getting hot, Steph hitting those shots. And again, this isn't all on Durant. I mean, yes, he put them in a position where they were competing. But I mean, again, to shoot 31 times.
But he's the MVP of this team. What are you talking about,
and this is why I'm opening with Durant and saying the fault lies with him first. And he definitely was the guy who said, put it on my back, I'll carry us. And for whatever reason, he wasn't able to come through for them. Now, whether that was shot selection, whether that was just general wear and tear of the fatigue, whether it was, deferring to guys when he shouldn't have deferred, whether it was, Westbrook not sort of having what I thought should have been the quintessential Westbrook game. I mean, again, some of the fault lies. Westbrook wasn't red hot, 0 from 5 from 3, 10 from 27 from the field. Westbrook still finished with 28 points, but it wasn't like he had a commanding 28 points. And then to see the Warriors go down and nail all those threes at the other end, and then every time the Thunder, especially Durant, tried to respond, he just come up short. I mean, all it took was for one of those threes to drop late in that fourth, and it's a different story. But it didn't happen. Right,
clearly,
it didn't
they're in the finals. Right.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's one of those cases.
Listen,
it doesn't hurt his legacy.
I don't think that this was an OKC.
Does it hurt his legacy?
I don't think this was an OKC meltdown. I don't think this was an OKC meltdown compared to the stuff we've seen throughout the regular season, as much as it was Klay start hitting some impossible shots. I mean, it was really kind of, I don't want to say luck because, yes, the Splash Brothers do their thing, but I don't think this is a meltdown. I think it was just a team going up against another great shooting team, and those shots were falling, and they were kind of bad shots. I mean, they're making that bad shots again that Katie was saying.
So here's where I will fault Durant. Now, Durant has the length and the speed to basically guard, as we've seen this series, anyone on the floor, right? I mean, other than maybe Andrew Bogut at the post, right? He's done an incredible defensive job, except for whatever reason, he decided that in this Game 6, I don't know why he would have, and this is what Kobe would have done, it's what LeBron would have done, it's what Jordan would have done. Now, the elite perimeter players through history, especially those with length, have always said the toughest assignment is mine. Now, when Klay started to get hot, I can't believe Durant didn't say to the coach, I'm going to stick with this guy. You guys take care of everyone else. I'm going to neutralize him because he's not going to be able to shoot over the top of me. Yeah. And that's what Durant should have done. Durant should have said to Dion Waiters and Russ, you take care of Steph. Don't let Steph get anything off. Foul him if you have to, but I'm going to stay in front of Klay. Now, if Klay beats you with twos, so be it. But you're not going to let Klay shoot threes over Dion Waiters time and time again or over Russ time and time again. And this is where I fault Durant. Not offensively. I fault him defensively for not picking up the tougher assignment and for basically stamping his will on the contest at home in a closeout game where he could have sealed Golden State's fate, and instead he lets them see to fight another day.
That's where Kevin, I think that I don't follow Kevin's defensive season. I mean, is he the type of player that can take a perimeter guy, run around the entire court as Klay does through multiple screens from all of those Warriors big men? I mean, does he have the capability? Yeah, he's got the length, but does he have the agility to run around with Klay? Right, and maybe that's where he struggled.
All series, the reason why the three hasn't been effective until this game was because of the switching, whether it was Cantor, Adams, Ibaka, or Durant. All of their bigs were switching on everything. Robertson was doing a great job, but again, if he can only take one guy. And where Klay got hot was when Russ or Waiters was essentially matching up on him, and that's how come he could shoot over the top. I mean, again, you saw it. Where was, I mean, other than the step back three that obviously Steph hit over Steven Adams right after death, other than that, none of their threes were over the bigs from Oklahoma City. So what I don't quite get is why, they've been switching all series long, and then all of a sudden they weren't switching, they were forcing little guys to fight through. I just thought we would have seen them identify what Golden State likes to do, and again, just put the big man on them. Yeah, look, if you're going to concede layups, you're going to concede layups, but definitely better than conceding triples. I mean, especially if that's what Golden State wants to do. So I think the Thunder let themselves down defensively late, but part of it was because of the fatigue, and I think it was so tiring just to be in that point. It was such an arm wrestle. Neither team had control of the game late until those two triples by Klay and Steph. Neither team was in control. And I do think that, Russ missing, turning it over, Kevin turning it over, getting swiped by Iguodala, things that have gone well for them all year, all series, all of a sudden weren't. And they just looked at each other like, where do we go here? How do we fix this? And it seems like they tried to fix it in the moment and couldn't. And then, of course, the threes happen, and then that's it. But I wanted to see Durant do a little better on defense, and I think the series could be over if he had done that. But we might see that in Game 7. No, I'm not going to rule that out. I think maybe he does want the assignment in the deciding Game 7 to help, revolve the legacy back towards a positive angle rather than a negative one.
Brad, I thought the Thunder had the game in control, but not in complete control, but I thought they had it in control for 3 quarters, and all of a sudden they just dropped the ball.
Yeah, but 75% of the job isn't a job done.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the series. And they were up 3-1. They were up 3-1 thinking that the series was over, the job was done, when the truth is 75% of it isn't 100% of it. So the Warriors understand that until you're actually eliminated, you're not eliminated. You got to fight until you're actually eliminated. And the Thunder seemed like they were expecting to win this. They thought they had the advantage, and maybe for 46 minutes they did. But in that final 2 minutes, we wanted Durant and Westbrook to either hit shots or get the stops or do what was needed to be done, and they couldn't deliver for their team. And that's why they're in the position they're in. That's why we have this super exciting Game 7, which I think we will see more from them.
I don't think that Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant were really fatigued that much in game number 6, to be honest with you. I just thought it was psychologically, they just weren't there in the closing minutes. And part of that is because of what the Warriors did to them. I mean, seeing those threes fall from near half court, from Klay and from Steph, I think that just did something to them that they were like, oh boy, we're done. Like, here, this is it. I mean, we're not going to be able to close this out tonight. And I really do believe that it just was so disheartening for them to see those threes fall. And you're right. I mean, Kevin Durant should have took the challenge of guarding the best player of that game, which was Klay Thompson.
Because this is what I'm saying, Gino. You've watched Kobe throughout his 20 years in the NBA. How often did you see Kobe, as one example, say, guys, I've got this. Like, I'm going to stop that guy from scoring. Now, people have also done that to Kobe, of course, because, again, he's been the most dangerous player on the court. Ray Allen and others have neutralized him at various times. But, you know, the Thunder shoot 3 from 23 from deep. That's why they just try to always match the Warriors from outside. Now, they were cold. They shouldn't have shot as many threes as they did. They weren't dropping. You know, they only shot 42% at home. I think both teams looked tight in this Game 6, and I think we're going to see a similar tightness in Game 7. They both realize what's at stake here. They both have a freaking awful lot riding on this game, and it's going to sort of swing how the legacies are about either Durant and Westbrook or, of course, Steph Curry and the Warriors season. So, you know, they both have a lot to lose in this one.
I'm not sure if I'm sold on this whole Durant stepping up defensively against Klay. I think Kevin Durant has had such a great series defensively against Draymond Green. I think that change that Donovan made early on in this series by putting Durant, having him play against Draymond a lot, blocking shots and disrupting, that game there, maybe that's where he stuck, where he was most effective. I'm not 100% sold on Kevin Durant supposed to take the best player when the best player is a perimeter three-point shooter coming off screens. Klay's not doing anything else. He's not rebounding the ball. He's not dishing the ball. He's not getting to the line very much. He's just shooting threes. And Kevin Durant is far more effective than being the guy who's going to chase around your spot-up three-point shooter. He's been doing such a fantastic job down low on Draymond, man. Draymond's shooting percentages or field goal percentage has been all over the place. Only in these past 2 games have we seen him step up.
Point specifically being is when you're in the last sort of 5 minutes of a game and Klay, is hot, I can live with Draymond Green posting up Dion Waiters and scoring on him. That's fine with me because you can send a double team at Draymond. What you can't do is send a double team at Klay, and you can't risk, having, Dion cover him single-handedly on the perimeter. I just think we saw Steph get neutralized. We saw Curry drive the lane and Durant swallow up his shots because of his length and size and speed. And we've seen, the Thunder's length hurt the Warriors all series. And now all of a sudden, one guy gets hot. My point is, we've seen historically
but you have guys like Andre Roberson, who's an excellent defender. You've got Westbrook, who's got an excellent defender. You guys take those Splash Brothers and don't let them do anything. You have the ability to get those guys.
Right, but none of those guys can contest Klay's elevation on that three. He's 6'7", shooting with a high arc. You've got to put size on him to disrupt that shot. Like I said, take away the three, make Klay drive. You can live with that because you're going to get help on that defense. So again, masterful performance from Steven Adams this series. I think he's really sort of put everyone on the map. That big facial dunk in Game 6 on Draymond Green, getting some revenge for the groin kick. Great to see. And I think the Thunder have put themselves in a position here where they could still steal Game 7. I don't think this series is over. I think anything goes in the do-or-die Game 7. We should,
great. Okay, you're 100% right. Game 7.
This isn't over. Right. This isn't over.
Right. Okay, I get it. But
until it is.
We got 1 minute left. What are you guys going with predictions-wise for this game tomorrow? I mean, clearly it's massive. Who do you got? And then let's end this third, man. I'll start with you, Jinno. Who do you got?
Well, before the series started, I called OKC in 7. I know it was like a blind call, but I thought OKC was going to win the series. So I know it's looking bleak right now, but I'm still sticking to that. So I'll pick OKC.
All right. Any details about the game you think is going to happen tomorrow?
I think they're both going to come out. Actually, typically in a Game 7, both teams are a little bit tight. to begin the game, but I think tomorrow they're going to come guns blazing, both teams. And I think it's whoever's going to be able to pull some stops down the stretch. And I expect big games from all the stars in both teams.
Bradford, brother, where you at here?
Oh man, I'm on a knife edge here. I really wish I could call this. My heart says Thunder, my head says Warriors. I want to see a spectacular performance from Durant. I think if Durant's shots falling early, I think this game could swing in OKC's favor. But I think Oklahoma City has to control the glass and they have to run. They went away from running in Game 6, and I think that's what did them in. I think they've got to get out and run and run and run and run. And I think if they do that, they can win this game.
What I like about OKC again is those complementary players have been consistent in these past few games. I look for them to continue if they want to win this game. But here we go. Clearly, I'm going to pick the Warriors, and I'll tell you why. Yep. It's going to be another historical moment for what has been such a historical team this season. We said it earlier. Down 3-1 in a conference finals, only 2 teams have been able to pull off that upset. And we even said it last episode or 2 episodes ago, which would be the bigger upset if the Warriors storm back and win, or if the Raptors storm back and win. And both Brad and I said, boy, if OKC screws this up, that's going to be the bigger upset. Well, guess what? The Warriors are knocking on that door, and it has been their year all year. Storybook, storytale, however you want to say it. They're just going to add to it with a victory tomorrow at home, man. All
right. Well, it's a great story either way. I think, if you're a basketball fan and you don't root for any of these teams, it's a great story, whether which team wins and goes on to the finals. Anyway, though.
Yeah, and whoever wins, Gino, just remember you didn't spend $29,000 on a pair of tickets.
That's true.
That's right. All right. No, Gino can.
Third quarter is over.
And trying.
And fourth quarter will be up soon. This is the Full Court Report. Keep it here.
He has made viewers laugh with his funny antics and awesome style in comedy. He has also been in quite a few headlines himself. Well, funny man Arnel Ignacio loves good times too. Curious if he has funny secrets he'd like to spill? Then head on to www.tv5.com.ph/originals and watch Good Times with Mo. Thursday, 9 p.m. on Digital 5. Call us on our hotline, also on Viber and Skype.
Welcome back to the Full Court Report. We got the fourth quarter, and we're going back to Sydney, Australia with Brad Graham.
Thanks, Gino. Look, I'm sure you guys all saw this, and there's probably no better time to bring this up. But the NBA recently announced their all-NBA teams. We've discussed this at length on this show. And again, first team, the big controversy being Kevin Durant did not qualify for first team, as I guess many predicted. But Kawhi Leonard did with 94 first-place votes. Now, joining Kawhi on the first team was Kevin's teammate, Russell Westbrook. Of course, the unanimous MVP, Steph Curry. One guy by the name of LeBron James, who we don't talk about enough on this show. And a real surprise, Los Angeles Clippers center DeAndre frickin' Jordan, Mr. Undeserving First Team. Somehow, I'm going to say this without hesitation. This was a mistake, and I think we're going to look back on this as a huge black eye on the NBA in terms of all NBA selections.
Why was it a mistake? Who would you have put there?
Well, first of all, to not say Kevin Durant is one of the 5 best players in basketball is insulting. I still believe. Look, regardless, I still believe that, you find a way, you freaking rig the vote. And again, whether it comes down to Durant versus Kawhi, regardless of what they did this season production-wise, I still think Durant's a better player and deserved to be there for everything. Whatever, that's a whole other argument. Now, Draymond for center, Draymond is probably the guy who was either most eligible and most deserving, given the 73 wins, given DeMarcus Cousins definitely shouldn't have been there because his team wasn't in the playoffs. Now, look, the talent pool at center, weak this year in terms of, you can't put Andre Drummond there. And, I'm trying to think who else is around the league, like Bosch, if healthy, maybe consideration. But the truth is that we didn't have a standout center this year. And rather than just give it to someone by default, as they did with DeAndre frickin' Jordan, awful pick. Yeah. And everyone in the media who put him on there should be slapped across the face. Again, I say just put Draymond on there, reward the Warriors for their 73 wins with 2 first-team selections, and just live with it. I mean, history's going to remember the Warriors for 73. The All-NBA teams should be reflective of that, especially in a year where we didn't have a standout center and we had real disruption across the league with the way the Warriors played ball. So, look, second team.
But
Durant,
I mean, they have that. That's how it's kind of put out there though. That Draymond Green can't be a center because he's not not a center. You know, he's not playing. He's not starting as a center on the team. Even though, again, maybe when they go to their death lineup, he's their center. He's not a starting center. Those are the rules. And so that's why I think DeAndre Jordan is the right choice for first team All-NBA. Yep.
Well, okay, if you want to say that he is the best center in that given season, sure. But I think you put a little asterisk next to his name, and you put a little disclaimer saying that qualified as best positional player, not best player or not best of the top five. Because the All-NBA is supposed to be reflective of the best 5 players in the sport. And he's not one of the best 5 players in the sport. He's not even one of the best 10 players in the sport. He's not even one of the best 3 players on his own team.
I agree, but that's not how it works. That's not how it's always worked. And to put an asterisk on this year, we can then throw asterisks on a bunch of other awards through the past 30 years since they've been doing it. I don't know how long they've been doing this freaking thing, but listen,
70 years. They've been doing it 70 years. This is my point. Okay, in the 70 years that this is the first time we've seen a real problematic situation for the NBA.
Sure, and we have seen, but we've seen this with the MVP award. We've seen it with other awards.
We've seen the NBA. The NBA has kind of addressed this for the All-Star games, right? And maybe we'll see this. Yeah, maybe we'll see this sooner or later.
We can't play the what-if game when right now these are the rules.
Fine.
If we talk about the rules and the rules alone,
the voters said
DeAndre Jordan is worthy. Yeah, he said he's worthy. He's worthy of it. You know why he's worthy of it? You said this, maybe 4 months ago when we first talked about it. You have to reward the teams that do well in the regular season, that have the better record, that make it to the playoffs. And guess what? All the dominant players that start at center, the traditional center position, their teams were not as good as the Clippers. The Clippers lost Blake Griffin, and DeAndre Jordan stepped up. Again, of the traditional centers, his team did very well during the regular season. He is then awarded with the first All-NBA selection, and that is the right choice to make.
First of all, I think awarded is a bit of a sort of misnomer. I think he was defaultly positioned there. But here's the thing. Okay. Fine, first team done. Second team, Durant, Draymond Green, DeMarcus Cousins, Chris Paul, Damian Lillard.
DeMarcus Cousins. There. But DeMarcus Cousins, what Mo said earlier about that, you got to reward the teams that do well in the regular season. The Kings didn't exactly do too well in the regular season.
But second team,
First team, second team is different.
Okay.
First team is different.
His stats warrant a second team selection because he was, as Mo said, the best of the traditional centers. Third team, Paul George of Indiana, LaMarcus of the Spurs, Andre Drummond of the Pistons, Klay Thompson of the Warriors, Mr. Kyle Lowry of the Toronto Raptors, all probably deserving. But the big wrinkle here, of course, is that by not being selected, Anthony Davis missed not what he was entitled to, but the bonus $25 million.
Yeah, I love it. I love Anthony Davis, but I love how they snobbed him for that. And I'm sure the guys in New Orleans are throwing a party because they saved themselves some coin. But I thought that was the right decision to make. Here's
what's interesting. Here's the big thing. Here's the big thing. Now, Anthony Davis, look, you could argue that maybe Karl Anthony Towns was deserving of a position here on one of the All-NBA teams. Of course, his team didn't win much, so it made it tough. But going into this season, we all thought Anthony Davis was first-team All-NBA. Because of the injuries, because of the record, that's where DeAndre Jordan stepped up and, I guess, stole that spot, which was probably sort of penciled in as being Anthony Davis's. Now, not only did Anthony Davis not make first team, but he didn't even make third team, didn't get any of the money, but fortunately, Steph Curry again unanimously picked to All-NBA first team, deservingly and rightly so. But LeBron James, 10th All-NBA first team. Holy hell. He's only been in the league 13 years and he's made 10 All-NBA first teams. Are you freaking kidding me? Who is this guy? I mean, this is another reason we don't talk about this guy enough. He's doing remarkable things all over the court, and every time we just take it for granted, we just expect greatness from LeBron. And again, he's joined an elite class: Kareem, Elgin Baylor, Kuzi, Duncan, Michael Jordan, Bob Pettit, Jerry West. I mean, these are the only people who make 10 All-NBA first teams. I mean, we're talking about the greatest of the greats, and LeBron's far from finished. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he makes a dozen first teams before it's all said and done, which means he will then move past both Kobe Bryant and Karl Malone. I think that would be very fitting if LeBron made the most number of first teams when his career is over. Jinno, how do you feel about LeBron possibly chasing down Kobe, possibly leapfrogging him?
Well, I think.
Or do you think Kobe will somehow cap his knees so that he can hold that record?
Hey, I wouldn't be surprised. No, I'm kidding. No, LeBron James definitely deserving to be where he is today. I mean, he's an all-time great already, and he's still in the prime of his career. And you know that's why we don't talk about him that much, because it's almost like we expect him to be this great all the time. And it's almost like we don't reward him by talking about him because he's supposed to be doing this. I mean, he's LeBron James. He is still, you know, maybe right now, still the among the best players in the world. And it's a little bit, and that's probably one of the things that's kind of annoyed him throughout this season, that people aren't talking about him as much as in the past. But I guess when you're that great a player, it's almost like it's almost like, okay, we expect this from you. And it becomes like a double-edged sword in that sense. Like if you don't do it, then it's going to be such a negative.
You're saying that like the sustained greatness makes him somewhat boring. It's like there's not a story around him. There's no new story. There's no new exciting event sort of circling him. Whereas I guess Steph Curry's still rising. Yeah. And therefore, he becomes the more interesting character because he's sort of taking down, guys that feel like they're twice his size. Yeah. But LeBron built the way he's built. I mean, yeah, we've seen this before. We're going to see it again. And again, look, DeAndre Jordan. I got to come back to DeAndre Jordan. Second in rebounds, but he averaged 70% field goal percentage. 70%. He made 70% of his attempts. It's insane. What the hell is going on here? I mean, can we not give Chris Paul more credit for setting him up for all these easy looks? I mean, Mo, you come back to DeAndre Jordan, the best of the traditional centers. DeAndre Jordan doesn't get there without Chris Paul. Shouldn't he be getting more love here? He's second team high enough.
Well, he did.
Should Westbrook have been dropped?
No way.
And Chris Paul put in the first team?
No way Westbrook.
No way?
Yeah. No.
Deserving that Westbrook's first team and Durant isn't.
Well, I mean, it's when three of the best players in the league are small forwards or forwards in that sense, in Kawhi Leonard, Kevin Durant, and LeBron James. It's understandable why Kevin Durant for me is in the second team, but I just think Russell Westbrook and Stephen Curry are head and shoulders above Chris Paul. And
now, here's what's interesting. I'll also add this. James Harden didn't make an All-NBA team. Is that surprising to anybody, given that James Harden is last year's MVP runner-up, and many people think that James Harden is still the best two guard in basketball?
No, well,
I was a little bit surprised, but again, I don't know if it was because of the awful Houston record or the laughable, memes and all of that stuff and gifs that we saw James Harden. But I think it was again one of those things where they rewarded the best team and they put Klay Thompson there in the two guard position. In fact, all of the all NBA selections were all point guards except Klay Thompson in a year that we were kind of praising the point guard position. So with Lillard, Lowry, Westbrook, Steph Curry, and Chris Paul. So I think Klay Thompson was more just giving it to him because of the great year that they had, but James Harden clearly still an elite offensive player. I was surprised a little bit that he wasn't there just because of the name recognition and the offensive stats that come with the name. But yeah, I mean, the team struggled and he was kind of laughable on defense. So yeah.
Well, speaking of James Harden, Mike D'Antoni now, right? Head coach of the Houston Rockets. Wow. We talked about this, sources sort of indicating that was going to be the case. Now I'm pretty sure it's confirmed. Correct me if I'm wrong, but does Mike D'Antoni make any difference? Do him and James Harden get along? Is this going to become the NBA's most interesting sideshow next season? Well, what are we going to see from James Harden and Mike D'Antoni?
We're going to see that the Mike D'Antoni 7-second shot clock, now 5-second shot clock. It's basically James Harden's going to dribble up the court.
Here's what's going to happen, Jinno. Yeah. D'Antoni's going to get in there and he's going to say, not the 7 seconds or less, it's going to be the 7 dribbles or less.
Exactly. This is where I see them not getting along. I think you guys are a little too excited about this matchup, this pairing of James Harden and D'Antoni. But I mean, come on, James Harden. Let's understand what kind of offensive game he gives you. He lulls you back to sleep with that rockabye baby type of dribbling, and then he decides something to do with the ball with 4 seconds left or 5 seconds left on the shot clock. So no, I don't think they're going to gel as well as a lot of people do, just because they're two offensive-minded people here. I think the style of James Harden and where he becomes effective, that takes time for James Harden to do his thing, and that's not going to mesh well with the D'Antoni system.
Well, I don't think it's going to be a great pairing to watch, but that's why I want to watch it, because I want to see what's going to happen with these two guys, this superstar and this coach, and see what happens, because I think it's going to be a good sideshow, and the same reason why I thought they were going to be a good sideshow this year, and they proved me right.
So here's another thing for you, just to finish up this show. Speaking, obviously Game 7 coming up, Thunder v Warriors. Steven Adams more than earning his contract. James Harden no longer an All-NBA team, producer. Did Oklahoma City possibly make the right move in getting rid of James Harden?
Oh, wow. It's hard to say. I mean, they basically it came down to a choice, right, between Ibaka and Harden, and they couldn't afford the salaries of both guys who were going to get extended. And
little do they know that the cap was going to go up.
Yeah,
they
didn't know. They didn't know that. Yeah. And so, I mean, right after they let go of Harden, I thought it was the right decision because Ibaka had a fantastic year. Then all of a sudden, 2 years later, Harden, broke through, and he was all of a sudden near the MVP status that he was last season. So it's really hard to say. I think that with the pieces that they got now, after they let go of James Harden, I think they've done pretty well for themselves, and I think Sam Presti has done a fantastic job.
Right. So rather than it being a win, it's more of like they salvaged the trade.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, no,
cool.
I still think they're better off now than if they kept Harden, just because there's just no way Harden, Westbrook,
right. It was like I think it would have. I think over 3 years it would have self-combusted. But again, we wouldn't have seen the growth from Westbrook if Harden was still there. So I think long term it's going to work out.
Just imagine the language.
I think that's it.
Just imagine the language Kevin Durant would be using to James Harden the way he does to Dion Waiters. Just like, oh man, that would be awesome just to see kind of what those clips are going to be like. Yeah, they would have never gotten.
Well, hey Mo, expect some more of that colorful language come Game 7. And Game 7, like I've said before, and I'll say it again, I am not going to get any sleep tonight. I'm going to be nervous. I'm going to chew off my fingernails. And if I'm not on the next show, it's because the Thunder lost embarrassingly, and I've had to go and sort of, become a born-again Christian or something. Who knows?
That's right. All right, let's get out of here. Let's go wrap it up, Jinno.
All right, so that's it. 4 quarters are over. Again, no Chris Savage tonight. He had a family obligation.
We miss you, Chris.
We miss you, Chris. It's the long weekend in the United States, and he had a prior engagement that he couldn't get out of. So let's go around the room and say our goodbyes. Let's start first from the Bay Area, at least currently in the Bay Area. Mo Twister.
That's right. That's right. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DJ Mo Twister. I am telling you, man, the vibe here is fantastic in San Francisco, Oakland, and I know it's just going to be ecstatic tomorrow. It's actually just kind of cool to be around this. It feels like the NBA Finals. I was kind of in this area last season when the Finals was on, and I think tomorrow's going to be kind of a little bit more hyper just because of what's on the line and with the backs on the walls for both teams. So it's good times to be here. Let's enjoy the game. I think it's going to be great, and we'll see you next episode when we start breaking down the NBA Finals. All
right. Brad?
I'm on Twitter at @BackpackBaller, and if the Thunder lose, I may or may not shut down my Twitter account because I can't take all the abuse. I'm a very sensitive soul.
Chris Savage is of course at Savage Sarcasm and at Not Bill Walton. You can reach him there. And of course myself is at Jinno Rufino, JINNORUFINO on Instagram and on Twitter. And of course at Full Court Report. Let's not forget our team's Twitter page. And of course we all also want to thank our staff who you don't see, but well, I see, but everybody else doesn't see behind the scenes. Thank you very much. And again, later on this week, we're going to preview the NBA Finals. This is the Full Court Report. Thanks for watching, everybody.